So a while back, I found out that there was this brand new way of figuring out whether a transformer was well made or not, and that was a pencil tap test. So I've got Hotshot here ready to go, and you know what? If this is how you do it these days, I guess I'm gonna try it out. Let's see if what kind of noise it makes when I give it a good tap. What the?
Warning, this video is intended for adult collectors. It contains plastic collectibles, questionable opinions, and the foremost Kamen Rider Decade apologist. Do not panic. This is just a random review.
Before we begin, thank you very much to Zoso900. I had to be very careful I remembered it because it's an interesting name. Sounds like an energy supplement. But thank you so much for joining the Patreon campaign. Really do appreciate it, guys. As always, you've been ridiculous. I still have way too many shout outs to get through. Thank you very much for all of the support. Get ready because we're going to be giving out the episode reviews a lot faster than we were before. I'm already halfway done with the work on Beast Machines. That's how much faster we're doing it this time. So look forward to it. I think it's going to be hopefully more enjoyable than the Beast Wars ones. I'm trying to make it a little bit more fun as my way of thanking you for being like extra supportive now. Gonna try. All right. I'm gonna try to get through this without hitting it with a hammer. So we've got to talk about Legacy Evolution Hotshot. I think at this point there is no such thing as a Hotshot toy that people aren't curious about my opinion of. So, of course, when a brand new one comes out, the long-awaited one, we've got to talk about it. Now, in the lead-up, looking at the preview images, yes, I have had issue with the toy. And now the question is, do they pan out? Is this worth merit? Does my opinion hold up now that it is in hand? All right, so first off, we will take a look. It is the traditional Hotshot vehicle mode. It is done about as faithfully as I think you could. I mean, it does strike me as the original Hotshot toy. Now, size-wise, yes, things are a little bit off. It makes his engine look a lot bigger than the original, and I think he is definitely lower to the ground as far as his overall shape and stature, but it does look good. You know, one thing that I would say is that Hotshot never really had a bad-looking vehicle mode outside of just being this super bright canary yellow that was, you know, kind of play school looking. Here it is a little bit richer. It feels like it's a little bit darker in tone than the standard Hotshot colors. It's not a yellow that like grates on my eyes. So it's definitely like an improvement over that at least. I will say it still suffers Hasbro's usual problem of not being able to color match paint to plastic very well. You can see in this shot where the roof actually has a little bit of a green tint to it because we're looking at translucent blue windows with yellow paint on top. So obviously that's going to affect it. Now this is something that light does play a factor in. If you're looking at it in dimmer light, you're probably not going to notice it as much as me pointing big ring lights at it, but just so you are aware. Beyond that, let's see what details we got. Okay, front bumper done up in solid black plastic. We have some silver paint not only on the engine, but also the grille and the headlights. Along the bottom, we do have the stripe going all the way to the back in black. Nothing in the back. But you know what? It is what it is. And he even keeps the design on the top as well. So he's got enough paint apps to come across as the original toy. Maybe not as paint heavy, because of course modern figures rarely are. But it is what it is. And you know, for the most part, it's actually not too bad. Alright, so let's see what features we got here. Alright, so for starters, let's remove the engine so we can get a look at him, just a little bit more clean. It does mean he has two big 5mm holes in the top of his vehicle mode now. Doesn't clean up as well as the original Hotshot toy does in that department, but it does give you options for attaching extra weapons or at any other figure you happen to want, weaponizers, etc. You also have you have a few in the back, and there's an interesting thing going on here. So you've got 5mm ports on the back of the spoilers, right? So you got that, and then nothing here in this wheel, but on this wheel you do, and that's we'll cover that here in a bit. We'll cover that when we get to robot mode, because to be honest, they've actually done something a little bit clever here. Now, the toy itself is going to be a little bit odd when you start looking at it, because you see the front wheel actually has the rims, the back wheel does not. And if we look at the other back wheel, it's sunken in. So out of 4 wheels, 3 of them do something completely different from others. It's a little bit weird when you stare at it, but I guess in the grand scheme, it's a minor thing. Just kind of funny is all. So, to be honest, yeah, there's really not a whole lot going wrong with the vehicle mode here, outside of just some paint issues. It seems fine. It's a hotshot vehicle. You will see on the back, there is an actual Minicon port on the back. Now, the gap in the spoiler is large enough to accommodate the original Jolt Minicon. I currently do not have access to mine because it, along with Hotshot, is buried in a bin in my storage room, completely inaccessible to me at the moment. But take my word for it, it does fit. So I'm presuming that the modern one from Universe 2, that's from 2008 at this point. But I assume that the other Jolt will fit as well because it's the same design, just a little bit smaller. All right. We will transform him now, and this is where the real test begins, as we find out exactly what goes wrong here. All right, so let's undo the doors. I do like that the door, anytime that the transformation on a figure does involve the doors opening up, because it does give you a little bit of car play pattern. That's kind of nice. All right, so I'm going to start breaking parts, starting with raising the roof, and then unclipping the legs apart from each other. I'll take this moment to point out that the feet flip out and do not have the buzzsaw sculpted in. That was a very simple gimmick from the original toy. Now, it's not spring-loaded like the old ones were, but it really shouldn't have been that hard to at least sculpt the detail in there so the original gimmick was retained, especially because the feet seem to work essentially the same way. They're just manual now. Little bit of a weird thing to leave out, considering that there is more attention to detail in this one, like the Minicon port, but I digress. Alright, so let's continue to split things apart, and we will double hinge these legs down like so. And now we need to start handling Kibble. Fold the doors all the way down. The Kibble itself is going to be weird. It's going to be weird. So for now, I'm going to put it here, and then once we get full into the transformation, then I'll figure out where it goes, and you'll see what I mean by that. Until then, make sure that the legs are plugged very tightly into the front. It's a very small tab that locks these ports down onto the thigh, creating the actual knee joint. So make sure it's pressed in as much as you can to make sure it stays put. Rotate the waist 180 degrees. Adjust the legs as necessary. Now, I'm going to move these big panels to the back of the legs. Okay, everything good there? Yep. All right, everything good. We are going to fold up these little extra bits as well, by the way. That will just clean it up just a little bit further. All right, let's go into the upper body. Not a whole lot here, so we're going to fold this big backpack piece down. Open up the chest in order to flip the head out. Sink it back in. Double hinge the backpack, like so. Open up these. These also double hinge. There's a lot of double hinges on this toy. Jeez, this thing was done in 2002 with far less steps. Now we got to overcomplicate everything. All right. Close up as flush to the back as you can and bring those shoulder pieces down. They will clip into the chest on these tiny little ports over here. So make sure they're down. That's basically going to be your deluxe hotshot in his robot mode. Let's adjust the camera so we can get him better in frame and take a closer look at the boy. So the transformation's pretty straightforward, not a whole lot of tricks. You'll notice in the legs, there's a lot going on that is basically held together by faith alone. We'll talk about that when we get into the articulation and when we start examining the figure in general. The transformation is not bad. However, my issue with it would be, like the original Hotshot toy to its credit, actually incorporated a lot of its kibble fairly well, to the point where the figure was pretty solid and clean overall. As an action figure, it didn't really do much action, but it at least cleaned up a lot. Whereas now we look at modern engineering, and there's a ton of junk on the back of this toy. It just does not handle the kibble and the bulk of the vehicle at all. It basically just wants, like, it's the engineers, instead of, you know, working all that bulk into the robot mode in the appropriate spots, seemed to take the opposite approach of the original toy and just shoved all of it in the back. It does end up allowing them to create a more, you know, potentially clean looking robot mode from the front, but it's not as satisfying as I think it should be. It definitely feels like there's I don't know, a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a laziness, but just a, just like a poor attempt at handling the kibble here. We'll go into that in a bit. Let's take a look at the head. If my camera will focus, there we go. The head sculpt, for what it's worth, is absolutely spot on. It strikes me very much as the original Hotshot. Maybe a little bit thinner, because I typically like imagine Hotshot with a very wide helmet, but it is what it is. While we're at the close-up, we might as well point out a few things. Number one, the toy does look a lot better with a fully and correctly painted Autobot symbol instead of what Armada did, which was just like a flat stamp of red all over it, details and all. So that's a much nicer look. Also, he has that gimmick. He can actually drop his visor. It's got sculpted detail to match how it looked in the show. It's translucent, so you can actually like see some detail through it, which is kind of neat. And then if you want to put it back up, you can't. If you want to put it back up, you can't. You can try. You have to push it all the way to the very top before it finds enough friction to actually hold up. I kind of like my Hotshot visor like right there. That's about where it was in the show. I can't put it there. It's going to fall every single time. Cannot stop it. I had to put it all the way up. Simple, tight hinge. That's all it would have taken. So, looking over Hotshot once it gets into focus, there we go. You can see that they've added some of the signature paint for the chest, so he actually has that racing harness look to him, but most of the rest of the painted details are gone, especially in the legs, where none of the detail has been touched whatsoever. It's actually surprisingly thin on paint when you look at it overall. Seems like the bulk of the paint budget might have gone into the engine, which is sculpted in red and then painted silver and black. So it's a little underwhelming. I really wish there's, for as little paint as going on in the vehicle mode, I really wish some budget had gone into the robot mode, just to flash it up and break up some of these like big, bright, you know, like blocks of yellow that he's got going on in the legs. All right, so yeah, we put it off long enough. Let us talk and discuss the legs and the kibble situation on this toy. So for starters, make sure that these tabs are nice and tight, because it is actually pretty easy to undo the leg connection. Sometimes it holds in, sometimes it does not. I'm not trying to force it. I'm not trying to do anything. You can see I'm just moving the leg and trying to get the knee to bend the way I would on a normal figure, and it does not want to hold in. Now, sometimes it does. If you can push it in long enough, it'll stay. Like this leg does better. This actually does act like a proper knee. But the fact that it's such a small tab means it's going to be prone to failure, and as the plastic wears down, which on a small piece is going to be pretty quick, it's going to continue to fail more and more often. It is a unfortunate failure point on the toy. But then we talk about the legs themselves. Obviously, there's nothing on the inside covering it up, so it just looks hollow and barren inside. And then you have this. So you've got this little tab on the underside, which you would think would make it lock into the back of the leg. There's like some gaps in there for it, but it doesn't fit. Like there isn't any spot for this tab to go to hold the kibble onto the leg. So the result is just this floating kibble that blocks the leg from going to a full 90 degrees like the hinge should be capable of. You can get it to go 90, but then you gotta move the kibble around. And one of my bigger pet peeves is when they expect you to have to shift around kibble just to have basic articulation. That means they put the kibble in the wrong spot. I feel like a smarter engineer Well, let's be fair. They're very smart engineers, but a smarter engineering job would have been to figure out how to get this panel to fold over and cover the inside of the leg too. And then it would have had a far cleaner look, and they might have been able to secure the legs a little bit better than they are here. But no, even in Hasbro's preview images, you could see these legs, these Kibble panels, they were trying to work around them for the action shots they took of Hot Shot. So he's just always had this problem. And then we go to the backpack. Now, this is actually there's actually a functional reason for this, because his backpack does actually contain his Axel Zuka. So he actually gets his original Armada gimmick back, sans Minicon. It's just a static thing now. Now, there's a few clever things about this. And hey, look, now I'm being complimentary toward the toy again. If I rotate it this way, then that hollow section is forward, so it looks more like a cannon, which is cool. If I rotate it the other way, that extended piece there is actually a 5mm port, so now it can support blast effects. So either a hollow empty cannon ready to fire or one in mid-fire, you have your choice, and I think it's actually pretty cool that they figured out how to do that. I won't demonstrate it here, but the designers at Hasbro also mentioned that it can come off the mushroom peg and be a handheld weapon as well when you combine it with the engine, which is a cool detail, but it doesn't feel like something they intentionally came up with. It feels like something they figured out after the fact. Either way, you can do it, and it makes it a little bit more special. So you do have the gun, the engine that can, of course, plug back into his arms. His arms that do look very skinny. It makes me realize how much bulk his original arms had, because he originally had this like linebacker look to him. Now that there's no Kibble on the underside and side of his forearms, they just look really scrawny, and I don't like that. Again, it feels like vehicle bulk could have been dedicated in other directions to make it look cleaner and make it look more like the original Hot Shot. So he's just got this really weird, like, gigantic mass in his legs and anemic arms. So that is, not a fan. All right, but articulation-wise, we can at least do that, right? All right, so the head rotates around, all fine. Universal shoulder joint, that works pretty well, all the way around on the bicep swivel as well. 90-degree elbows, no wrists, but he does have waist articulation all the way around. Thighs, universal, or hips universal, thighs rotate freely. You get 45 degrees with the Kibble in place, and once you move them, you get close to 90 degrees on the knee bend. I hate that. I still don't like that. And then, of course, you have the ankle rock as well, so he does have that ability, and he can actually balance his poses as well. And because I've got it here, you also notice like this. On mine, it doesn't tab in well at all. On yours, it might be different. But for me, his shoulders are always kind of flopping out. So, I will point out, because it's here, Starscream's Starsaber does look quite a lot better on him because of its small size. So, if you want to arm him up with Starscream's accessory, it looks far better on him. So, give him that credit. So, that's Legacy Evolution Hot Shot. What do I think? Well, it is, technically and correctly, the best Hot Shot figure we have ever gotten. Now, remember, for me, that's a pretty low bar. And when I say the best, I mean we're excluding things like Cybertron Hot Shot, which are essentially completely new designs. No, for something that represents the original Yellow Armada character, this is the best one we've gotten. But I'd still just kind of say the toy is average at best. Yeah, it's got good articulation and a good vehicle mode, but some really bad choices in the legs and the knees especially, and some very strange body proportions really keep me from enjoying the toy itself. If the legs had better part management, if they had stronger knee connections, then I would rate the toy a little bit higher. Unfortunately, it's just messing with my ability to enjoy the toy. And I want to make this clear. I really don't mind some things on modern Transformers. I don't mind that there's a few paint apps missing. I don't mind some hollowed out parts as long as they feel secure. I certainly don't care what they sound like when you hit them. Why is it making that noise? Are we back to this, Hasbro? What I care about is the toy is fun and well designed, well made. Now, You can argue what well-made means. To me, it means that the toy is completely functional and enjoyable to mess with. And for me, Hot Shot just has too many poor choices going on for me to really get into it. Yeah, it's the best Hot Shot we've ever gotten, especially for the Armada design. I still don't think it's the Hot Shot that fans deserve. Hasbro should still be able to do better than this. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.